The great hall of Nexus Prime Station buzzed with alien voices. Admiral Taman Park stood at the center, his dark uniform looking plain next to the colorful robes and strange armor of the other council members. His hands were steady, but his jaw was tight. He had been fighting for Earth's survival for 3 hours now, and the alien faces around him showed nothing but boredom and disgust. "Honored council members," Taman said, his voice carrying across the massive chamber. "The data is clear. Our deep space stations have picked up signals from beyond our galaxy. Something big is coming, something that destroyed entire star systems in the void between galaxies." The tall, blue-skinned counselor Vexithari let out a sound that might have been laughter. His forearms gestured dismissively. "Admiral Park, your species has been part of this council for only 50 years. We have been watching the stars for 50,000. Do you really think your primitive sensors can detect threats that our ancient systems cannot?" Dr. So-Young Kim stepped forward from behind Taman. She was smaller than most beings in the room, but her eyes burned with determination. "Counselor, we have shared all our data with your science teams. The quantum signatures are unlike anything in our galaxy. The destruction patterns suggest weapons that can crack planets like eggs." "Enough." The voice boomed from the highest platform. Prime Speaker Zolthak was old even by his species standards. His reptilian face showed scales that had turned white with age, and his eyes glowed with ancient authority. "Young Dr. Kim, your species discovered faster than light travel barely 100 years ago. You found nuclear fusion when my people were already building stellar engines. What makes you think you understand galactic threats better than we do?" Taman felt his anger rising, but he kept his voice level. "Because we're the ones who found it, Prime Speaker. Our ships were exploring the galactic rim when they detected these signals. We've been tracking them for 6 months. They're getting closer." The chamber filled with various sounds of alien displeasure. Clicks, hisses, and electronic tones that Taman had learned meant disagreement and mockery. He looked around the room at faces that had once seemed mysterious and wise. Now they just looked arrogant. Commander Jae-Wook Lee, captain of Earth's flagship, whispered urgently to Taman, "Sir, they're not going to listen. We should prepare for the worst." Vexithari stood up, his forearms spread wide. "Council members, we have tolerated this human hysteria long enough. They come to us with wild stories and demand we mobilize the entire galaxy based on their faulty readings. This is exactly why their species should never have been granted council membership." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Taman saw Dr. Kim's face go pale. They both knew what was coming. Prime Speaker Zolthak raised his massive hand for silence. "The hegemony faction has called for a vote of no confidence in Earth's council membership. They claim that humanity's aggressive nature and panic-driven responses make them unsuitable for galactic governance." "We're not being aggressive," Dr. Kim protested. "We're trying to save everyone. The signals show massive energy signatures moving in formation toward our galaxy. This isn't panic, it's preparation." But Taman could see it was already over. The alien faces around them had made their decision before the humans had even spoken. This wasn't about the threat from beyond the galaxy. This was about power and fear, and the older species not wanting to admit that the newcomers might have found something they had missed. "The vote is called," Zolthak announced. "All in favor of removing Earth from the Galactic Council?" Lights began appearing around the chamber. Blue lights for yes, red lights for no. Taman watched as blue light after blue light appeared. A few red lights flickered on, but they were overwhelmed by the sea of blue. The final count appeared on the main display. 847 votes for removal, 123 votes against, 45 abstentions. The chamber fell silent. Taman felt like he had been punched in the stomach. 50 years of careful diplomacy, 50 years of proving humanity deserved a place among the stars, gone in a single vote. Vexithari's voice was smooth and satisfied. "The motion passes. Earth's membership in the Galactic Council is hereby revoked. All human personnel must vacate council space within 72 hours. All treaties and trade agreements are terminated immediately." Dr. Kim stepped forward, her small frame shaking with fury. "You're making a mistake. When that fleet arrives, you'll wish you had listened to us." "If such a fleet even exists," Vexithari replied with a smile that showed too many sharp teeth. "Which our experts doubt. Your species has a history of creating enemies where none exist. Perhaps isolation will teach you the value of peace." Taman finally spoke, his voice cold and steady. "You want to talk about creating enemies, counselor? You just made the biggest one you'll ever face. The chamber erupted in alien sounds of outrage and disbelief. How dare a member of a primitive species threaten the mighty council? But Taman wasn't making a threat. He was making a promise. As the human delegation was escorted out of the chamber, Taman caught sight of some of the younger council members. A few looked troubled. A few had voted against the removal. They understood that something important had just been broken, and it might not be possible to fix it. Commander Lee walked beside his admiral as they headed for their ship. "Sir, what are our orders?" Taman looked back at the great chamber one last time. "We go home, Commander. We warn Earth what's coming, and we prepare for the day when they come begging for our help." Dr. Kim joined them as they reached the docking bay. "Do you think they'll realize their mistake when the invasion begins?" "Maybe," Taman replied. "But by then it might be too late. For them." The human ships undocked from Nexus Prime and began their journey back to Earth. Behind them, the Council continued their session as if nothing important had happened. They had removed a troublesome member and could return to their comfortable lives. They had no idea they had just created their future masters. The journey back to Earth took 6 days. 6 days of silence in the fleet as Admiral Taman Park stared out at the stars and planned humanity's future. When the news reached Earth before they did, the planet exploded into action. By the time Taman's ships entered Sol system, every human colony was already mobilizing. The Luna shipyards were working around the clock. Mars had begun converting civilian factories to military production. Even the distant mining stations in the outer planets had started building defensive platforms. General Hee-Jin Choi met Taman at the space dock above Geneva. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, but her handshake could crush steel. "Admiral, the President wants to see you immediately. We've got a lot to discuss." "How bad is the reaction?" Taman asked as they rode the elevator down to Earth's surface. "Bad and good," Hee-Jin replied. "The civilians are angry and scared. But the military and industrial sectors are more united than I've ever seen them. Everyone wants to know what we do next." The emergency session of Earth's government was held in an underground bunker in Switzerland. Leaders from every human colony and nation sat around a massive table, their faces grim but determined. President Martinez, a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, called the meeting to order. "Admiral Park has briefed me on what happened at Nexus Prime," Martinez said. "The Council has made their position clear. We're on our own." Director Kyung-Ho Yoon stood up from his seat at the far end of the table. He was a thin man with thick glasses who rarely spoke at these meetings. But when he did speak, people listened. "Actually, Mr. President, we've been on our own for quite some time. It's time to show everyone what we've been building." Taman looked confused. "Director Yoon, what are you talking about?" Kyung-Ho smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Project Genesis, Admiral. We've been preparing for this day since we first joined the Council. Follow me." The group took transport ships to a location in the asteroid belt that appeared empty on all sensors. But as they approached, Kyung-Ho entered a code into his personal device. Suddenly, the space around them shimmered and a massive construction appeared. It was a shipyard unlike anything Taman had ever seen. Hundreds of kilometers long, with thousands of construction bays. Ships were being built at an incredible pace by armies of robots and automated systems. But these weren't the simple vessels that Earth had been building for the Council. These ships were sleek, powerful, and covered in weapons that Taman didn't recognize. "How long has this been here?" Dr. So-Young Kim whispered. 15 years, Kyung-Ho replied. "We started building it the day after we joined the Council. We knew that eventually, our differences with the older species would become a problem. We decided to be ready." General Choi pointed to one of the completed ships. It was twice the size of Earth's previous flagship, and bristled with energy weapons. These vessels use technologies that the Council has never seen. Quantum phase drives that can slip between dimensions, plasma cannons that draw power directly from subspace, shield systems that can absorb and redirect energy attacks. Captain Narration appeared on the main screen from her position aboard one of the new ships. She was a veteran explorer who had spent years mapping the galaxy's edge. "Admiral, I've been testing these systems for 6 months. Our new ships can outrun, outgun, and outfight anything in the Council fleet. But that's not the best part," Kyung-Ho added. He led them to an observation deck that looked out over the construction bays. "We're not just building a fleet. We're building an empire." The view changed to show other hidden bases throughout the Sol system, manufacturing centers on the moons of Jupiter, research stations in the Kuiper Belt, massive automated factories that were churning out ships, weapons, and equipment at a rate that defied imagination. Every human colony has been contributing, General Choi explained. Every research station, every mining operation, every industrial complex. We've been preparing for total war while pretending to be peaceful. Dr. Kim looked troubled. But the alien threat from beyond the galaxy, that's real. Captain Song detected their advanced scouts. Captain Song nodded grimly from the screen. Dr. Kim is right. 3 months ago, my deep patrol encountered alien ships near the Galactic Rim. They were unlike anything in our databases. When we tried to communicate, they attacked without warning. We managed to disable one of their smaller vessels. The screen changed to show images of the captured alien ship. It was dark, angular, and covered in what looked like organic growths. The beings inside were even stranger. Tall, thin creatures with too many joints and faces that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. We've been studying their technology, Kyung-ho said. They're called the Devourers according to their databanks. They've been crossing the void between galaxies for millions of years, consuming everything in their path. They've destroyed 17 galaxies before reaching ours. The room fell silent. Even with all their preparations, the scope of the threat was overwhelming. President Martinez finally spoke. How long do we have? Based on the captured ship's navigation data, the main fleet will reach the Galactic Rim in 18 months, Captain Song replied. The Council worlds will be hit first. Earth won't see combat for at least 2 years. Good, Taman said, surprising everyone. That gives us time to finish our preparations. When the Devourers reach Council space, the older species will remember that they need us. General Choi brought up tactical displays showing the positions of major Council worlds. The hegemony systems will fall first. They're the most exposed. Vexthari's home planet will probably be consumed within the first month of the invasion. And when they come begging for help? Dr. Kim asked. Tae-min smiled, and it was the same cold smile that Kyung-ho had worn earlier. Then we'll negotiate from a position of strength. The Council wanted us gone because they thought we were too young and aggressive. They're about to learn what human aggression really looks like when we're defending our own interests. Over the following months, the hidden shipyards worked faster than ever. Human colonies that had seemed peaceful and quiet revealed massive military installations. Trade ships that had been carrying simple goods were actually transporting weapons and equipment to staging areas throughout human space. The galaxy's greatest intelligence networks never detected the buildup. Why would they? Humans were just the primitive newcomers who had been kicked out of the Council. They were probably sulking in their home system, licking their wounds. They had no idea that humanity was forging the greatest war machine the galaxy had ever seen, and they wouldn't realize their mistake until it was far too late to stop what was coming. The Devourers were coming to destroy the galaxy, but they would find that the species they thought was weakest had become the strongest, and this time humanity would not be asking for permission to defend themselves. This time humanity would be giving the orders. The first reports came from the Outer Rim systems. Council monitoring stations went silent one by one, their final transmissions showing massive dark shapes blotting out the stars. The Devourer fleet had arrived exactly when Captain Narration had predicted they would. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun Kang stood on the bridge of the Terra's Vengeance, humanity's new flagship. Around him, holographic displays showed the destruction spreading across the galaxy's edge. Entire star systems were being consumed, their energy absorbed by the alien fleet to fuel their advance into the galaxy's heart. Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Nexus Prime, reported his communications officer. Put it through, Dong-hyun ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Prime Speaker Zolthak. The ancient alien looked older and more desperate than Dong-hyun had ever seen him. Fleet Admiral Kang, I am speaking for the emergency session of the Galactic Council. We request immediate military assistance from Earth's forces. Dong-hyun almost smiled. Prime Speaker, I seem to remember Earth being expelled from the Council. You told us our membership was revoked and all treaties were terminated. The situation has changed, Zolthak replied, his voice cracking slightly. The threat is real. We were wrong to doubt your warnings. Surely humanity will help us defend the galaxy we all share. Actually, we don't share it anymore, Dong-hyun said calmly. You made that very clear. Earth's policy now is to defend human interests only. Good luck with your war. He cut the transmission before Zolthak could respond. Around the bridge, his human crew worked with quiet efficiency. They all remembered the humiliation at Nexus Prime. They all remembered being called primitives and warmongers. Now the galaxy would see what human warfare really looked like. Dr. Junseo Lim appeared on a secondary screen from the Tactical Command Center. He was young for such an important position, but his artificial intelligence systems were the most advanced in the galaxy. Admiral, the Council's first battle group just engaged the Devourer advance fleet near the Rigel system. They're being completely destroyed. Show me, Dong-hyun ordered. The tactical display showed the battle in real time. The Council ships used traditional energy weapons and simple defensive shields. They flew in standard formations that had worked for thousands of years against other galactic species. But the Devourers were not from this galaxy. The alien ships seemed to absorb the Council's energy attacks and redirect them back at twice the power. Their own weapons fired beams of dark energy that passed right through the Council's shields as if they weren't there. Within an hour, 300 Council ships had been reduced to floating debris. Sir, we're getting reports from all along the galactic rim, reported Commander Sujin Han from her intelligence post. The hegemony fleet is falling back toward their core systems. Vexthari's homeworld has already been evacuated. Dong-hyun nodded. Everything was going according to the plan that Admiral Tae-min had developed. Let the Council exhaust themselves against the Devourers. Let them realize how badly they needed humanity's help. Then when they were desperate enough, the real war could begin. The breakthrough came 3 months later at the Kepler colonies. It was humanity's first major engagement with the Devourers, and the galaxy was watching. If the humans failed here, the alien invasion would continue unopposed to the galactic core. Captain Mi Young-bae led the Ghost Squadron into battle. Her 12 ships were the most advanced vessels humanity had ever built. They could phase in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Her pilots were the best that Earth could produce, trained in tactics that no alien species had ever seen. Ghost leader to all units, Mi Young spoke into her comm system. Remember, these things have been conquering galaxies for millions of years. They think they know every possible way to fight. Today we show them they're wrong. The Devourer fleet was massive, dark ships that blotted out the stars. They moved in perfect formation, their tactics refined by eons of conquest. When they detected the human ships, they responded exactly as they had to every other species. They formed attack lines and prepared to absorb whatever energy weapons the humans might use. But the humans didn't use energy weapons. Not at first. All units phase shift on my mark, Mi Young ordered. Mark! The 12 human ships vanished from normal space, slipping into a parallel dimension that the Devourers couldn't detect. The alien fleet fired at empty space, their sensors showing nothing. For the first time in millions of years, they were confused. The humans reappeared inside the Devourer formation, their quantum torpedoes already armed. These weapons didn't use energy that could be absorbed. They used exotic matter that existed in multiple dimensions at once. When they struck the alien ships, they tore holes in reality itself. 3 Devourer vessels were destroyed before they could react. The rest of the fleet tried to turn to face this new threat, but the human ships were already gone again, phasing out of normal space before the aliens could target them. Ghost 7 to leader, came the voice of Lieutenant Taeho Park, the Admiral's nephew. They're adapting faster than expected. Their shields are shifting to block our torpedoes. Then we adapt too, Mi Young replied. Switch to plasma cannons, full power. Let's see how they handle stellar fire. The human ships reappeared again, this time above the Devourer fleet. Their plasma cannons drew power directly from subspace, channeling the energy of stars themselves. The beams that struck the alien ships burned with temperatures that could melt planets. But the Devourers adapted to this attack as well. Their ships began to move in patterns that the humans hadn't seen before, using gravity fields to deflect the plasma beams. It was clear that this was a species that learned from every battle. All units, this isn't working, Mi Young announced. Time for the new protocol. Dr. Lim, are your AIs ready? From the tactical center, Dr. Lim's voice was calm. Ghost Squadron, you are now linked to the tactical network. My AIs will analyze the enemy's adaptations in real time and suggest countermeasures. Trust the system. What happened next changed warfare forever. As the Devourer ships adapted to human tactics, Dr. Lim's artificial intelligences adapted even faster. They analyzed every alien movement, every energy signature, every tactical decision. Within minutes, they were predicting the Devourer's actions before the aliens made them. The human ships began to move with impossible coordination. They appeared and disappeared in patterns that seemed random, but were actually precisely calculated to exploit weaknesses in the alien formation. Their weapons fired in sequence, each shot designed to force the Devourers into positions where the next shot would be most effective. For the first time since their invasion began, the Devourers were losing. Unknown human vessels, came a transmission from the lead Devourer ship. The voice was strange, speaking in harmonics that made human ears ache. Your resistance is impressive. Join us, and your species will be spared when this galaxy is consumed. Mi Young's response was broadcast on all frequencies so that every species in the galaxy could hear it. This is Captain Mi Young Bay of the Sol Empire. We don't join invaders, we defeat them. The Battle of Kepler lasted 18 hours. When it ended, 47 Devourer ships had been destroyed and the rest of their fleet was retreating toward the galactic rim. The humans had lost only 2 ships and even those crews had been rescued. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The species that the Council had dismissed as primitive warmongers had just accomplished what the combined fleets of the galaxy could not. They had stopped the Devourers. Within days, ambassadors from dozens of worlds were requesting meetings with the Sol Empire. They came not as equals but as supplicants. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Admiral Taemin Park, now commanding the entire human fleet, received them on his flagship. His message to each delegation was the same. Earth remembers who stood with us and who cast us out. Choose your next words carefully. 10 years after the Battle of Kepler, the galaxy was a very different place. Emperor Woojin Park, son of the legendary Admiral Taemin, stood before the great window of his flagship New Sol, watching as another former Council world surrendered to human authority. The planet below had once been home to a proud warrior species that had mocked humanity's military traditions. Now their ships hung in orbit with their weapons powered down, waiting for permission to approach the human fleet. Their leaders were coming to beg for the protection that only the Sol Empire could provide. Your Majesty, Marshal Subin Yu approached with a datapad in her hands. She was the supreme commander of all human military forces, a woman whose tactical genius had crushed 3 galactic rebellions without losing a single battle. The Altarian delegation is requesting an audience. The same Altarians who voted to expel us from the Council? Wu Jin asked without turning from the window. The same ones, Majesty. Their home system is under threat from Devourer remnants. They're offering complete submission to Imperial authority in exchange for protection. Wu Jin smiled. It was a cold expression that had become famous across the galaxy. How generous of them. What do our intelligence reports say about their military capacity? Negligible, Subin replied. They have 40 outdated ships and defensive platforms that couldn't stop a civilian transport. But their manufacturing base is still intact, and their population includes skilled engineers and scientists. Then we accept their surrender, Wu Jin decided. Send Admiral SEO to establish a pacification zone around their system. Standard terms: complete disarmament, Imperial Governor, and integration into our production network. Through the great window, they could see the lights of human ships surrounding the surrendering world. It was a sight that had become common throughout the galaxy. Everywhere the Sol Empire expanded, order followed. Species that had spent millennia fighting each other now worked together under human supervision. Director Yunji Ryu, head of the Human Colonial Authority, joined them at the observation deck. She carried reports from dozens of worlds where humans were taking control of alien governments. Majesty, we're receiving similar surrender offers from 17 other systems. The pattern is always the same: local conflicts, devourer raids, and governments that can't protect their own people. And we can protect them, Wu Jin stated. It wasn't a question. The human military had grown beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. While the old council species fought each other over resources and territory, humanity had been building an empire that spanned half the galaxy. Marshal Yu activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic control. Human territories were marked in blue, stretching from the galactic core to the outer rim. Former council space was fragmented into dozens of small, warring factions marked in red. Neutral zones appeared in yellow, growing smaller each day as more species chose to join the empire rather than face the chaos outside. We now control 60% of inhabited space, Subin reported. Our production capacity exceeds the rest of the galaxy combined. Our fleet includes over 10,000 capital ships, with more launching every day. Admiral Byung-ho Seo appeared on the communication screen from his command ship. He was the leader of the pacification fleets, the forces responsible for bringing order to conquered territories. Your Majesty, the former hegemony worlds are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss terms for joining the Empire. Wu Jin laughed, a sound that held no humor. The hegemony? The same faction that led the vote to expel humanity from the Council? The ones who called us primitive and aggressive? The same, Majesty. Their spokesman is actually Councillor Vexthari himself. The Emperor's expression hardened. Every human in the galaxy remembered that name. Vexthari had been the most vocal opponent of human membership in the Council. He had mocked their warnings about the Devourer threat and celebrated when they were expelled. Now he was coming to beg for mercy from the species he had despised. Bring him to me, Wu Jin ordered. I want to look into his eyes when he surrenders. The meeting took place in the Imperial Throne Room, a massive chamber built into the heart of the flagship. Wu Jin sat on a simple but impressive chair made from metal, salvaged from the first Devourer ship that humanity had destroyed. Behind him stood Marshal Yu and the other leaders of the Empire, their presence a reminder of human military might. Vexthari entered the chamber looking nothing like the proud counselor who had once dismissed humanity. His forearms hung limp at his sides, his colorful robes were faded and torn, and his eyes showed the desperation of a species facing extinction. He was followed by a small group of other former council members, all looking equally defeated. Your Imperial Majesty, Vexthari began, his voice barely above a whisper. I come before you to request what? Wu Jin interrupted. Protection, aid, the same consideration you denied my father when he warned you about the Devourers. Vexthari flinched as if he had been struck. Majesty, we were wrong. We admit our mistakes. Our pride blinded us to the wisdom of humanity. We beg you to accept our worlds into your empire. Beg? Wu Jin leaned forward in his throne. The mighty hegemony is begging the primitive humans for help? How the galaxy has changed. Director Yunji stepped forward with a data pad. Your Majesty, our analysis shows that the former hegemony worlds still possess significant industrial capacity. Their population of 12 billion could contribute substantially to imperial production goals, and their strategic position controls 3 major hyperspace routes, added Marshal Yu. Controlling those systems would give us dominance over the entire galactic southeast. Wu Jin studied the alien delegation for a long moment. These beings had once been among the most powerful in the galaxy. They had commanded fleets that could destroy star systems and ruled over hundreds of worlds. Now they stood before a human emperor, hoping for the chance to become subjects of the species they had once scorned. I accept your surrender, Wu Jin said finally, but not as equals seeking alliance. You will be subjects of the Sol Empire, nothing more. Your fleets will be scrapped, your governments dissolved, and your worlds administered by human governors. Your people will work for imperial goals, not your own. Relief flooded Vexthari's face. Even total submission was better than the chaos consuming the ungoverned parts of the galaxy. Thank you, Your Majesty. The hegemony worlds accept these terms completely. There is one more condition, Wu Jin added, his voice growing cold. You will publicly broadcast an apology to every human world. You will admit that humanity was right about the Devourer threat, right to prepare for war and right to refuse council authority. You will tell the galaxy that human leadership is the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. Vexthari's forearms trembled, but he nodded. It will be done, Majesty. As the former council members left the throne room, Marshal Yu approached the Emperor. Your Majesty, with the hegemony worlds under our control, we'll have the resources to begin Phase 2 of the expansion plan. Wu Jin nodded. Phase 2 would extend human control to the galactic core, where the oldest and most stubborn species still refused imperial authority. It would be the final campaign that would establish humanity as the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Begin the preparations, he ordered. It's time to finish what the Council started when they cast us out. They wanted us gone because they feared human ambition. Now they'll learn what human ambition can truly accomplish. Outside the great windows of the New Sol, the lights of the human fleet stretched as far as the eye could see. Each ship represented not just military might, but the dreams of a species that had been told they didn't belong among the stars. Now those stars belonged to them, and they would never give them up again. 25 years had passed since the fateful day when humanity was banished from the Galactic Council. Now Empress Jiwan Park stood in the grand observatory of New Sol, the massive orbital city that had been built around Jupiter. Through the transparent walls, she could see the lights of 1,000 worlds all flying the banner of the Sol Empire. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, not through conquest alone, but through the simple fact that humans had proven themselves the only species capable of bringing order to the chaos that had consumed the stars. Where the old council had failed, the Empire had succeeded. Your Imperial Majesty, Chancellor Minho Lee approached with the daily reports from across the Empire. He was a descendant of one of the original commanders who had served under Admiral Taemin Park. The morning briefings are ready for your review. Ji-won turned from the window, her expression calm and confident. She had inherited more than just a throne from her grandfather and father. She had inherited the destiny of an entire species. What news from the outer territories, Chancellor? Excellent progress, Majesty. The former Council worlds report full integration into Imperial systems. Production is up 18% from last year, and civil unrest has decreased to virtually nothing. The citizens seem genuinely grateful for the stability we've brought them. It was true, and Ji-won knew it. The species that had once mocked humanity now thrived under human rule. Their children grew up learning human languages alongside their own. Their scientists worked in Imperial research centers developing technologies that benefited the entire galaxy. Their workers contributed to projects that spanned dozens of star systems. Grand Admiral Seung-ho Kim appeared on the main communication screen from his flagship in the Andromeda sector. He was the current commander of the Imperial Starfleet, the largest military force the galaxy had ever known. Your Majesty, I have the weekly security report. The Galactic Defense Network is operating at full efficiency. No external threats detected and all internal regions remain stable. The Galactic Defense Network was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement. A web of automated defense stations, sensor arrays, and response fleets that covered every inhabited system in the galaxy. No threat could approach from outside without being detected months in advance. No internal rebellion could gain strength without being crushed before it truly began. Any word from the Devourer rehabilitation centers? Ji-won asked. Yes, Majesty. The integration program continues to show remarkable success. Former Devourer crews are proving highly effective in deep space construction projects. Their knowledge of void navigation has been invaluable for our expansion into the space between galaxies. It was perhaps the most surprising development of all. The species that had once sought to consume the galaxy had petitioned to join the Empire rather than face extinction. Their advanced biotechnology, combined with human engineering, was opening up possibilities that neither species could have achieved alone. Director Ye Jin, head of the Department of Galactic Integration, joined the morning briefing from her offices on Mars. Majesty, we have requests from 3 more independent systems asking to join the Empire. As always, they cite security concerns and desire for economic stability. Standard integration protocols, Ji-won decided. Voluntary submission always receives favorable terms. What about the Ceremonial Council? The old Galactic Council still existed, but only as an advisory body with no real power. Former enemies like Vexithari now served as junior administrators, helping to manage the worlds they had once ruled independently. It was a daily reminder of how completely the galaxy had changed. They're preparing for today's anniversary celebration, Minho replied. Prime Speaker Zolthak will be delivering the traditional speech acknowledging human leadership and the benefits of imperial rule. Ji-won almost smiled at the irony. The ancient being who had once dismissed humanity as too young and primitive would spend the morning praising human wisdom and thanking the Empire for bringing peace to the galaxy. It was a speech he gave willingly now, because he had seen what the alternative looked like. Majesty, Grand Admiral Kim's voice carried a note of satisfaction. You should know that our long-range scouts have made contact with 3 other galaxies. Initial reports suggest they're inhabited, but lack any unified government. The local species seem interested in learning about our system of governance. Expansion beyond our galaxy? Ji-won mused. That would have been unthinkable when my grandfather first sat in this chair. With respect, Majesty, many things that are routine now would have been unthinkable 25 years ago, Chancellor Lee observed. Human leadership of the galaxy. Peaceful cooperation between species that had been enemies for millennia. The complete elimination of major warfare, it was true. The galaxy had never known such widespread peace and prosperity. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had once been isolated enemies. Scientific discoveries made on one planet were shared across hundreds of systems. Cultural exchange had created new art forms and philosophies that enriched every species. Your Majesty, Director Ye Jin's voice carried excitement. We're receiving a special transmission from Earth. The memorial service for Admiral Taman Park is about to begin. Jiwon nodded solemnly. Her grandfather had died 3 years ago, finally succumbing to the age and stress of building an empire, but his funeral had been attended by representatives of every species in the galaxy, all coming to pay their respects to the human who had saved them from chaos. Put it on the main screen, she ordered. The view changed to show the memorial, park on Earth where a massive statue of Admiral Taman stood, overlooking the birthplace of humanity. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds had gathered to commemorate the anniversary of Liberation Day, the Empire's official name for the day humanity was banished from the consulate. An elderly human woman approached the podium. She was Dr. So-Young Kim, now ancient but still sharp, one of the last survivors of that fateful day at Nexus Prime. 25 years ago, Dr. Kim began, her voice carrying clearly across the memorial grounds. The Galactic Council made a decision that changed the course of history. They chose to banish humanity because they believed we were too young, too aggressive, too different to contribute to galactic civilization. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. This story had been told countless times, but it never lost its power. They were wrong about our youth, Dr. Kim continued. Youth brought innovation and fresh perspectives to problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. They were wrong about our aggression. That same fighting spirit they feared is what saved every world here today from the Devourers. And they were wrong about our differences. Our human approach to cooperation and governance has created the most peaceful and prosperous era in galactic history. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Not just from humans, but from the alien species who now proudly called themselves Imperial citizens. Today, we celebrate not the day we were cast out, but the day we were set free to show the galaxy what humanity could truly accomplish. We celebrate the day that began our rise from outcast to leaders, from beggars to emperors, from the dismissed to the indispensable. Jiwon watched the celebration with quiet pride. In the end, the Council's greatest mistake had been their greatest gift to the galaxy. By casting humanity out, they had forced humans to become stronger, more united, and more determined than they ever could have been as junior members of someone else's system. Chancellor, she said finally, prepare the daily address to the Empire. It's time to remind our citizens why human leadership isn't just beneficial, but necessary. Yes, Your Majesty. What message would you like to convey? Jiwon looked out at the lights of the galaxy, each one representing worlds and peoples that looked to humanity for guidance and protection. Her grandfather's dream of a united, peaceful galaxy had been realized beyond his wildest imagination. Tell them, she said, that the species who sought to banish us from their council of civilized beings taught us the most valuable lesson in galactic history. They taught us that civilization is not inherited or granted. It is earned, it is built, and it is defended. Today, humanity has not merely joined galactic civilization. We have become its architects, its guardians, and its eternal protectors. The message would be broadcast to every world in the Empire, as it was every Liberation Day, and on every world, beings who had once scorned humanity would listen with gratitude and respect. The galaxy was safer, more prosperous, and more united than it had ever been. All because the Council had made the mistake of underestimating the species they thought was weakest. History would indeed remember that day differently than they had ever imagined.